התקבל zu melachim zel ze ze לקבל זה התקבל zu melachim zel ze ויאמר זה לזה מי הוא זה ואיזה הוא מאחז פני ישראל מי הוא זה ואיזה הוא Parshay Salavanano.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a sad privilege to be here this evening. Those of you who've been on this journey will know that we had a very, very moving, exceptionally busy funeral on Monday. I know many of you were there, and an evening of Shiva prayers that was led by Rabbi Maariv and cantor Zoe Jacobs on the Monday night, and we've been here for the last 2 nights. This is the last night of these Shiva prayers, and what we put together this evening is a series of pieces of music wrapped around the Maariv Service and the traditional memorial prayers. You've got a program note there where there is a little asterisk. On your program notes, you are carrying in your hands also the lyrics and the words for those parts of the service. The rest of the service you'll be able to find in the Siddur, and I'll give you the page numbers as we go. One of the things that's struck me in the 2 weeks since Stephen died is just the extraordinarily broad range of ways in which he connected with so many people. It's a privilege to have Joseph Finlay here accompanying, who was the choir director here, who worked so closely with Stephen for so many years. To have Noah singing this evening, who of course Stephen tutored for her Bat Mitzvah. To have so many people who've been touched by Stephen's friendship and by his leadership as a Chazan and by his teaching across so many generations. It's an extraordinary outcome of a life to have touched so many people in so many ways. So as we are sad, and we're all sad, we can take a moment to be touched by his memory and to be lifted and to steel ourselves in the ways that Stephen wished us to be steeled into the future. We'll begin, as is appropriate, in song.
Israel, mimini
Page 256. Page 256. Yedid Nefesh is the friend of our soul, and I don't think there's a better phrase in the entire Siddur for our Chazan.
Yedid Nefesh of Arachaman Meshor Avdecha Eretz Zolecha Yaretz Avdecha Kamo Yishtahabel Mo
והוא רחום מכפר עוון ולא ישחית, והרבה להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כל חמתו. אדוני הושיע המלך יעננו ביום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שבדור מערב ועובד הוא מעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים. אהבת תורה מצוות ממך, אהבת תורה מצוות חוקים משפטים, תנו לימדת על כן תנאי להם בשכב נקבועים נצטרך וזאת לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגע ימם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם מלאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה עם שמות השם נוסתה את אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ואמונה כל זאתכם עלינו כי הוא אדוני. ומלכותו ורצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל. לך אנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדדנה את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו מלכנו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ותקננו בצעה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך, והגן בעדנו והסר מעלינו האויב דבר וחרב ורע ויגון והסר שטן מלפנינו ובצל כנפיך תסתירנו כי אל שומרנו ומצילנו אתה כי אל מלך חנון ורחום אתה ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. עד ברוך אתה לנו את כל אמן ואמן ברוך אתה ציון שכון ירושלים ולכנו יעבור אותנו. יראו עניינו וזמח לבנים ונקדש. כי המלכות שלך היא ולעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו.
Please rise, page 212. We'll continue on to the coming with the private Yigdal.
יגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלה מרי ורח ירותה, וימליך מלכותה בחייכון וימיכון, ובחלך בית ישראל, בעגלה זמן קריב ימרו, אמן. ישמר מבורך לעלה ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ותרבית רמו ויתנשא, ויתהדר ותהלל ויתהלל, שמד קודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל בחטא, ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה וימרו, אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, על כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, באדמה דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון לחלק בישראל, בעגלה זמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל שם קדושה בריחו לעילא מן כל בחטא ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמר עליו ואמרו אמן. תתקבל זאת ההון ובת ההון דכל ישראל כלומר בנו בשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וכן כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח אדון הכל ולצאת בראשית ואנחנו קוראים שתחווים עדים שנים בחיים מלכים כלל ברוך אינו דרגן לקבל אדון אלוהינו שזר לפגועים ממנו עצמנו ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
I invite anybody who wishes to join me with the Mourners Kaddish as we remember all those who are mourning, all those with yahrzeit, and especially our beloved Chazan. Page 232.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי הוויה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמר דיאמה ואמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיים וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Continue with the prayer for the hostages.
A prayer for the redemption of the captives. O God, the one who released us from the one who released the bound, send complete rescue and full redemption to all those held captive by the enemy. Strengthen their spirit and bring them our prayers that they may be protected from all harm. Implant understanding in the heart of the enemy, that they may return the captives in wholeness of body and spirit. Evoke fortitude and compassion in the leaders of Israel, her rulers and advisors, to uphold what is written. Do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kin. And what is written, do not stand on the blood of your fellows, and redeem the captives who are awaiting your salvation. May the one who heals the brokenhearted and binds their wounds strengthen, embrace, and hold near to you the captives who have returned to their families. Send them complete healing, both in body and in spirit, for you are our almighty sovereign, are a faithful and merciful heathen. Swiftly return our brothers and sisters who are still being held in captivity, those in joy for life and rehabilitation, and those in sadness for their eternal rest. Grant strength of spirit and courage of heart to all the sons and daughters of Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar, to release the bonds of captivity and allow us all to live in freedom. Fulfill your promise as relayed. They shall call upon me and I will answer them. I will be with them in distress. I will rescue them and honor them. And let us say, Amen.
Please be seated. We're going to open the memorial prayers with Ki Hine Kachoma. It's one of the pieces that I associate most with Stephen. I could feel it so clearly. He felt this need to lift the whole community up at the beginning of Kol Nidre, and he would lead with such force and strength as he brought us up to the Shechianu at the beginning of the Kol Nidre, and then he would almost like let the ball roll down the hill as we made our way through, carried for many years, Joseph, by your choir, but carried largely by us as a congregation. And we would reach this point in the Kol Nidre service. Kine Kachome Omnam Kain is around just this part of the service as well. And I could feel this extraordinary coming together of the entire community in song. So we haven't got Stephen to lift us up to the top of the hill, but we know this one, I know. It's in the center of the paper that you have. It's also, I think, just an extraordinary reflection on the mortal condition of humanity, on which we're all reflecting this evening.
This was Stephen's favourite place to sing from in the shul. Ki hine kachomer beyad hayotzer birtzoto marchiv uvirtzoto mekatzer kein אנחנו בידך חסד נוצר לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כאבן ביד המסתת ברצותו אוחז וברצותו מחטט כן אנחנו בידך מחיה וממוטט לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כגרזן ביד החרש ברצותו דיבק לאור וברצותו פירש כן אנחנו בידך תומך אני ורש לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כהגה ביד המלאך ברצותו אוחז וברצותו שילח כן אנחנו בידך אל טוב וסלח לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כי זכוכית ביד המזגג ברצותו חוגג וברצותו ממוגג כן אנחנו בידך מעביר זדון ושוגג לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כיריעה ביד הרוקם ברצותו מיישר וברצותו מעקם כן אנחנו בידך אל Anov Elokeim Laberit Habeit Ve'al Tefen Layetzel Ki Hineka Kesef Beyad HaTzoref ברצותו משגשג וברצותו מצרף כן אנחנו בידיך ממציא למסור טרף לברית הבית ואל תפן ליצר כי הנה כחומר ביד היוצר ברצותו מרחיב וברצותו מקצר כן אנחנו בידיך חסד נוצר לברית הבית ועל תפן ליצר.
Page 838. Continue with the formal memorial psalm said in a house of mourning. It's a real honor that Rabbi Chaim Wiener is here. Rabbi Chaim, of course, rabbinic leader of this synagogue for 5 years, supported by Stephen on this Bimah in so many ways. We'll do the traditional minhag anglia thing of responding antiphonally, so we'll do alternate verses. It was a form of shlichut that Stephen was very fond of. Please rise.
למנצח לבני קורח מזמור
שימו זאת כל העמים, האזינו כל יושבי חלב.
גם בני אדם, גם בני איש, יחד השיר ואדיון.
תדבר חמות, בגוד ליבי תבונות.
עד התהל למשל אוזני, אפתח בכינור חידתי.
למה ירב ימי רב, עונג ויוסו בעיני.
הבורחים על חילם, וברוב אושרם יתהללו.
אך לא פודו יפדה איש, לא ייתן לאלוהים כופרו.
ויקר פדיון נפשם, וחדל לעולם.
ויחיון הנצח לא יראה השחר.
כי הרבה חכמים ימותו, יחד קציל ובהר יאבדו, ויעזבו לאחרים חילם.
קרבם בתימו לעולם, משכנותם לדוב הדוב, קראו בשמות אלי אדמו.
ואדם ביקר בל ילין, נמשל כבהמות נדמו.
זה דרכם כסלמו, ואחריהם בפיהם ירצו סלע.
כצאן לשאול שתו מוות, יראים וירדו בם ישרים לבוקר, בצורם לבלות שאול, מזבו לו.
אך אלוהים יפתה נפשי מיד שאול, כי יכחני סלע.
אל תירא כי עשיר איש, כי ירבה כבוד ביתו.
כי לא מותו ייקח הכל, לא ירד אחריו כבודו.
כי נפשו בחייו יברך, ויודוך כי תיטיב לך.
תבוא עדו אבותיו, עד נצח לא יראו.
אדם ביקר ולא יבין, נמשל כבהמות נדמו.
Please remain standing. We continue with the memorial prayer, page 840. Adonai, melech male rachamim, Elohei aruchot lechol basar, asher be'adecha nafshot החיים והמתים. אנא קבל בחסדך הגדול את נשמת החזן יונה בן חיים יעקב ומרים אשר נאסף אל עמו. חוס וחמול עליו, סלח ומחה לכל פשעיו, כי אדם אין צדיק בארץ אשר יעשה טוב ולא יחטא. זכור לו צדקתו אשר עשה, וישכרו איתו ופעולתו לפניו. אנא הסתר את נשמתו בצל כנפיך, הודיעהו אורח חיים. שובע שמחות את פניך, נעימות בימינך נצח, ותשפיע לו מרשוב הצפון לצדיקים. כמו שכתוב, מה רב טובך אשר צפנת ליראיך, פעלת לחוסים בך נגד בני אדם. אנא אדוני הרופא לשבורי לב ומחבק לעצבותם, שלם ניחומים לאבלים. חזקם ואמצם ביום אבלם ויגונם, וזוכרם לחיים טובים וארוכים. תן בליבם יראתך ואהבתך לאהובתך בלבב שלם, ותהיה אחריתם שלום. אמן. כאיש אשר עמו תנחמנו, כן אנוכי אנחמכם, ובירושלים תנוחמו. לא יבוא עוד שמשך, ויראיכך לא יאסף, כי אדוני יהיה לך לאור עולם, ושלמו ימי אבן. בילה המוות לנצח, ומחה אדוני אלוהים דמעה מעל כל פנים, וחרפת עמו יסיר מעל כל הארץ, כי אדוני דיבר.
Mourners Kaddish, page 844. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabbah, Bimah yivrach yimtei v'yamlech malchutei, v'chayechon v'yamichon v'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv yivru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'le'amei amaya, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קדושה ובריאו לעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה יאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחלים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום ובונה הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Please be seated. The origin of this next piece are some verses in Hosea, and it makes its way into our Siddur on page 8 as the thing that is said as you bind the straps of the tefillin around the hand. It's an act of betrothal of us towards God, and in that it was beloved by Stephen and part of his weekday engagement with the prayer community, the prayer traditions of our faith. It's also something that I was interested in when I was first joining New London Synagogue. There was an induction that was planned, and we thought we would theme the induction around the liturgy of marriage, and I suggested these verses, and I asked Stephen if he knew a good tune for them, and he said, no, but I'll get back to you, and he got back to me a couple of weeks later with this. I adored it, and I didn't realize at the time that he composed it himself. It was arranged for a musical score by Joseph Finlay, who I think, were you then I've lost track of some of this.
I think so.
Who was the choir director on that day. So this is Verestikli Leolam from Hosea on page 8 of the Siddur, sung by Yoav, composed by Chazan Stephen Cotsen, and arranged and accompanied by Joseph Finlay.
I'm really thankful to be asked to speak about Stephen tonight. It's been sad but beautiful to learn over these last days all of these stories about Stephen and perspectives about Stephen that I didn't know before. And so I want to share with you tonight a little bit about who Stephen was through my eyes. I did the maths. It's always a dangerous thing for me to do. But I've known Stephen for just over half of my life. Stephen was the first person that I would make a beeline to in the Kiddush hall when I was a teenager, pretending not to be intimidated about being in a room full of adults. And he would tuck me under his arm and say, "Hi, sweetie." He was the first person at shul who ever invited me over for a meal. Stephen understood what it meant to move someone from being a stranger and a guest in the synagogue to being a part of the community. He was also the person who taught me how to love prayer when I was young, and then was my Chazan when I returned here as a rabbi. And of course, always and most importantly, he was my friend. I remember the very first service that I ever learned to lead. Stephen taught me for leading in the Minyan Chadash in the days where women could not lead from this Bimah. We sat upstairs in one of the classrooms to go over the service, and Stephen quickly clocked that as much as I try to hide it, I'm actually a very nervous singer when I'm not just following. There are two things that I remember Stephen saying to me in our first session together. When I kept singing this pattern of notes just slightly different from how he was modeling it, and I was becoming tense about the fact that I just wasn't getting it, he said, "Oh, that's nice. You should do it that way. It will just be the special Natasha way." Stephen was, as a teacher, and in many other ways, endlessly encouraging and warm. The other memory that I have from that day is when he tried to get me to sing the Finkelstein L'Ador Vador. He played me the video of it, And he told me how much he loved that tune with that dreamy smile that he would get when the music hit just right. And then he asked me to try the first line and a pause, then let's just do the tune you know. Encouraging and warm, and also not going to let me butcher one of his favorite tunes. I'm sorry, Stephen, I think I've got it now. It just took 14 years. That story has been on my mind partly because L'Dor Vador is a piece of liturgy that says so much about Stephen. He cared deeply about tefillah and about teaching the next generation. When I think about him now on this Bimah, the image that I have is of a Cheder Shabbat when he was up here, absolutely surrounded by kids from the Cheder and leading them through the Kedusha. He was in his element, joyous, proud, and fulfilling precisely what L'Dor Vador is about as a prayer. L'Dor Vador Nagid God Lecha. From generation to generation, God, we will speak of your greatness. I didn't know it at the time, but I was part of that. Stephen's passing on of tradition, of building up the next generation to ensure that the message of L'Dor Vador would be true. Thank you for that, Stephen. Every time I hit a note correctly in davening, I'll attribute it in part to you. And every wrong note is, of course, entirely my own. I then got to know Stephen from a new perspective when I came back here to serve as a rabbi. Stephen has overseen every rabbi of this shul in his time. Rabbi Louis Jacobs of blessed memory, Rabbi Chaim Wiener, Rabbi Reuven Hammer of blessed memory, Rabbi Jeremy Gordon, and me. If Chazan Stephen and this Bimah could have a conversation about us all, oh, the stories they could tell. Stephen's second stint here as a Chazan was marked, of course, by COVID. He knew when he began this role again that it was for a limited time, but he wanted to see us comfortably out of the pandemic before retiring again. He was, I must say, remarkable during that period of time. Even as a Chazan for so long and in so many places, there was no precedent for what it would mean to hold a community's prayer on his shoulders in the situation that he was in. And he somehow never made it seem heavy, even though I know he, like many of us, was spending his days alone at that time. Although, of course, for Stephen, alone did mean surrounded by about 1,000 frogs. There were many Shabbatot where it was just the three of us in this room for services. Chazan Stephen, Rabbi Jeremy, and myself, surrounded by plastic, leading services in front of cameras. And then there were many Zoom screens to sing in front of with everyone else muted, and the Facebook Live recitations of the memorial prayer when there was no one there with him at all. It was a lot of work, constantly trying to find ways to pray together when we could not pray together. There was a particular change that occurred after the congregation re-entered this room. After so long of being in front of a camera, Stephen found that he wanted to face the congregation now while leading, instead of facing the ark. After all those years of leading with us behind him, he'd finally had the experience of looking into our faces while davening, and he loved it. He wanted to see us, panim el panim, face to face. It was transformative, and it was also deeply telling. The act of leading was always really an act of being in relationship for him. I have a memory from that tumultuous time of sitting with him in his garden one sunny day. My role had changed a little, and it suddenly involved a lot more singing, and I asked Stephen for his help. He sat and listened patiently and course-corrected me, and more than anything, just gave a boost of much-needed confidence. Somehow, as talented and skilled as he was always able to lift up those around him. I remember his advice from that day in his garden. It was not "you're off key," though I'm sure I was. It was things like, "Let's try that again, just relax," and "Don't forget to have fun." My phone is full of tiny recordings from Stephen across the years, usually because I would ask him for help with musical transitions. How do you get from the Nusach for Shabbat into the Nusach for festivals? On this particular line, I would ask, and he would hit record. And now, between messages about work and endlessly silly conversations and frog emojis, I have these snatches of a few words in his voice immortalized just for me. Transitions are difficult. I wish you were here to help us with this transition too, dear Chazan, but that's just how it goes. Stephen's last message to me was just a few weeks before he died. We were talking about setting up a time for me to come over once my busy weeks of traveling were behind me. I'm sorry to say that I never got to make that date with him. It will have to wait for Olam Haba. His very last message to me was, "You are always welcome here." So to Stephen, dear Chazan, dear friend, thank you for welcoming so many of us onto your Bimah. From the young children you shepherded through a Cheder Shabbat to God knows how many B'nai Mitzvah, or as you would call them, the Bar Bats. From young adults like me that you taught services to all the rabbis you've made space for and helped shape along the way, you will always be here somehow on this Bimah. And I will try to take your advice seriously. You meant it about singing, but it's good advice for life too. To relax and to breathe and to remember to have fun. Thank you. We're going to continue now with that piece from Le Dor Vador. If you want to follow along, you can find it on page 436. This is the Meir Finkelstein tune for this song that we use quite a lot now in the synagogue. I didn't know this at the time, but Meir Finkelstein was actually the son of Tzvi Finkelstein, who was the Chazan in Cardiff when Stephen was growing up. So now we know exactly why that tune is so special to him. We'll continue now with David. And I think please sing along.
We are going to ever so slightly move ahead. It would be wrong not to try and get through today without a moment of opera, and Yoav and Joseph will oblige. You might recognize this one. just where Joseph needs to leave, I just want to say a particular thanks. You've stepped in really at the last minute for today. We're so grateful, and of course so appropriate that you're here. Thank you. Joseph was stepping in for Alex Knapp, very well known to members of the community. Alex had a fall and had to go into hospital. We wish him a speedy recovery. When Stephen retired for the first time, I dedicated a sermon on Yom Kippur to him, and when he retired for the second time, I thought that would be a bit much. So I ripped off a poem by Rudyard Kipling, which I shared then and will share again now. If you can command a pulpit when rabbis all about you come and go, and the shul depends on you. If you can lead so all can follow you, but make allowance for their leadership too. If you can sing all day and neither be tired by singing, nor make us tired to hear your song. If your weekday, Shalosh Regalim, Shabbat, Yomim Noraim Nusach is always impeccable, if your Yitgadal and Yitgadash are always evocative of correct time and place, if you start, and even more magically, if you finish precisely on the dot, if your Tefillat Geshem makes the heavens weep, and your mere presence guarantees sunlight on the walk to shul, if you can fill the unforgiving day of Kippur with avodah of beauty and passion, if you can bury and wed or both in the same day, if you can sit with spotty adolescent or homebound congregant and love us all, and we know that, so we love you in return. If you can be the fulcrum of our thoughts and prayers and still retain that humility, for it's not to you we pray. If you can sing with unstinting passion and commitment and still know that being our Baal Tefillah isn't about your vocal pyrotechnics, we'll love you even more. If you can cater, and boy can you cater, or even as you give up catering, if you inspire others to try, if you raise the money or produce the leaflet or the concert or buja or, oh, so many, many things. If you can sit through meeting after meeting with a gnomic smile, and if you can sit through sermon after sermon and not make it too obvious that of course you know far better. If you can put up with this rabbi who speaks too much and starts too many things that fall through the net for you to catch. If you can make the office groan at yet another quickly turned pun. And if, despite all the love we have for you, you know there is no higher call than the care of your sister and mum, then there will always be a special place in our hearts, in my heart, for you. We are all in your debt. Our Chazan, our songstrel, our friend and colleague, good and true. And indeed, yours is the earth and everything in it. And what is more? You've been a mighty Chazan, my son. We thought we'd conclude with something silly. I think we all need something silly. We sung this at the funeral, and I was so touched to share it at the funeral, and we're going to try it again. I was holding forth round about this time of year, and I said that there's only one verse from the Megillah of Esther that appears in liturgy. It appears in the Havdalah service, and Stephen corrected me because there's a second verse which appears in a not very well-known Gaonic piyut on Simchat Torah that Stephen, of course being Stephen, knew from growing up in Cardiff. He had a mojitza tune for singing it in the Hebrew. But when we looked at the Mahzor, the old Routledge Mahzor for tabernacles, there it was with a translation by the great homme de lettres of Anglo-Jewry, Israel Zangwill. And Stephen took one look at this translation and said, "Oh, we can sing that, and we will try together." The story is of someone who went up to the heavens to fetch the Torah down. That's what it's doing in the original for Simchat Torah. That would be Moses. But I think for us today, it reminds us of somebody who uses prayer to reach up to the heavens, to bring the Spirit of Divine down and bring our prayers up. So this is "The Angels Came a-Mustering," translated by Israel Zangwill. I do encourage us all to sing along. You'll pick up the tune pretty quickly, I'm sure.
Angels came a-mustering, a-mustering, a-mustering. The angels came a-clustering around the sapphire throne, a-questioning of one another, of one another, of one another, a-questioning each one his brother around the sapphire throne. Pray, who is he, and where is he, and where is he, and where is he, whose shining cast so fair is he, a shadow on the throne? Pray, who has up to heaven come, to heaven come, to heaven come, through all the circles seven come, to fetch the Torah down. 'Tis Moses up to heaven come, to heaven come, to heaven come, through all the circles seven come, to fetch the Torah down. Pray, who has up to heaven come, to heaven come, to heaven come, through all the circles seven come, to fetch the Torah down.
Not for the first time do I feel just the extraordinary privilege of being able to serve here as rabbi. To be able to put together this evening with the support of David and Yoav and Rabbi Natasha and Joseph and Noah, with all of you, with the supports of the office, and to feel so supported on this journey for us. To Tina as Stephen's next of kin, it's an honour to have you here. It was such an honour to be preparing this run with you, a sad honour, but one I would never have forsaken. Stephen would be, I think he would have enjoyed tonight, and he would tell us off if we were too maudlin. He was a man who lived life and even died a death entirely on his own terms. We should all have such opportunities for agency, and he would be absolutely insistent that we should now go and eat. There is a reception served next door. Thank you for your company this evening. To us all, I wish us all a long life.
The angels came a-mustering, a-mustering, a-mustering. The angels came a-mustering around the sapphire throne, a questioning of one another, of one another, of one another, a questioning each one his brother around the sapphire throne. Pray, who is he, and where is he, and where is he, and where is he, whose shining cast so fair is he, a shadow on the throne. Pray, who has up to heaven come, to heaven come, to heaven come, through all the circles seven come, to fetch the Torah down. 'Tis Moses up to heaven come, to heaven come, to heaven come, through all the circles seven come, to fetch the Torah down.